I worked so hard, I whispered, more to myself than to her. I know, baby. Mom's voice cracked slightly. I watched you, every night, studying until I had to turn your light off. Every weekend, volunteering instead of hanging out with friends. You earned this. Diego glanced up from his game, those serious dark eyes that made him look older than 13, studying my face. He'd been quieter than usual lately, retreating even further into his electronics and robotics projects. Sometimes I caught him watching me with an expression I couldn't read, like he was solving a puzzle in his head. The front door slammed, and Marina's laugh filled the hallway, bright and musical, the laugh that had charmed teachers and friends since we were kids. She bounded into the kitchen, still wearing her server's uniform from the restaurant downtown, her hair perfectly curled despite working an 8-hour shift. "Family dinner," she announced, sliding into the chair across from me. Just like old times. Marina was beautiful in the effortless way that made people turn their heads on the street. At 19, she moved through the world with a confidence I envied, even though I'd surpassed her academically years ago. She'd been Mom's golden child once, the daughter who would lead our family to success, who would be the first Ramirez to graduate from an elite university. Until she didn't. 2 years ago, Marina had applied for the same Princeton scholarship I was now awaiting. She'd been so sure it was hers, we all had been. Marina was charismatic, involved in theater, student government, everything that made admissions officers smile during interviews. But her grades had slipped junior year. Late nights at parties instead of studying. Assignments turned in days late with elaborate excuses. She'd barely maintained a B average while I was pulling straight A's, taking AP classes she'd dropped. When the rejection letter came, Marina had cried for 3 days straight. Mom has held her, whispering that there would be other opportunities, other scholarships. But something in my sister had hardened after that. The easy smiles became more calculated. The encouraging words felt rehearsed. Now she was back home, working at the restaurant, talking about taking a gap year to figure out her next move. And I was 17, holding the dream she'd lost. "So," Marina said, reaching across the table to steal a piece of bread from my plate. "Big day tomorrow, huh? The scholarship announcement." I nodded, not trusting my voice. "I'm sure you'll do great," she continued, but something in her tone made my stomach clench. "I mean, you've worked so hard, all those late nights, all that stress. It's really admirable how you've overcome all those little setbacks. Little setbacks. Like they were my fault. Like I somehow caused the missing letters, the canceled appointments, the mysterious delays that nearly derailed my applications multiple times. Sofia's going to Princeton," Diego said suddenly, his game forgotten in his lap. "She's the smartest person I know." Marina's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Of course she is, our little perfectionist." The word stung, though I couldn't say why. I was a perfectionist. I had to be. In our family, success wasn't guaranteed. It had to be earned, fought for, protected. Mom served dinner, and we ate in relative quiet. The conversation drifted to Diego's robotics club and Marina's coworkers at the restaurant. Normal family dinner talk that felt slightly off, like a song played in the wrong key. Later that night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my stomach churning with anticipation and something else, a nameless anxiety that had been building for months. In less than 12 hours, I would know if 4 years of relentless work had been enough, if I'd overcome whatever force seemed determined to see me fail.
Through the thin walls, I could hear Marina on the phone in her room, her voice too low to make out words, but carrying an edge of excitement that made my chest tight. Diego's door was closed, probably working on another of his complex electronics projects, soldering tiny components under his desk lamp until our mother made him go to sleep. I pulled out my phone and reread the Princeton acceptance email for the 18th time, searching for reassurance in the formal language. "We are pleased to inform you," but pleasure felt dangerous. Hope felt like a luxury I couldn't afford. Tomorrow would decide everything. The morning of the scholarship announcement dawned gray and drizzly, matching the knot of anxiety in my stomach as I got ready for school. I stood in front of my bedroom mirror, adjusting my lucky earrings, the small silver stars Mom had given me for my 16th birthday, and trying to project confidence I didn't feel. Marina appeared in my doorway, already dressed for her afternoon shift, makeup perfectly applied despite the early hour. She leaned against the doorframe with that graceful posture that had won her homecoming queen junior year, before everything went sideways. "Big day," she said, and I couldn't tell if the brightness in her voice was genuine excitement or something else entirely. "Yeah," I fumbled with my backpack zipper, hands shaking slightly. "Mr. Caldwell said the committee would call the winner by noon." Princeton. Marina stepped into my room, picking up the small framed photo on my dresser. Me and Diego at his science fair last year, both of us grinning over his blue ribbon robot. It's funny, isn't it, how life works out? I turned from the mirror to face her. "What do you mean?" "Just that we both wanted the same thing, but only one of us was destined to get it." She set the photo down carefully, her fingers lingering on the frame. "I used to think it would be me, the older sister, paving the way, setting the example." The sadness in her voice seemed real, and I felt the familiar stab of guilt that came whenever I thought about surpassing her. Marina had been my hero once, the confident older sister who knew how to talk to boys, how to make friends effortlessly, how to command attention in any room. I'd spent my childhood trying to be like her before I realized I was better at being me. "Marina?" I started, but she waved me off. "Don't. This isn't about me feeling sorry for myself." She sat on the edge of my bed, smoothing the comforter with precise movements. "I'm proud of you, Sofia, really. You've always been the smart one, the focused one. I just got distracted." Distracted was Marina's way of describing the parties, the boys, the gradual slide from honor roll to barely passing that cost her the scholarship she had once assumed was hers by birthright. "You could still apply to other schools," I offered quietly. "There are other opportunities." "With what money?" The sharpness in her voice cut through the morning softness. "Mom's barely keeping us afloat as it is. College is expensive, Sofia. Full scholarships like the one you're going to get don't come around twice." The certainty in her voice, "you're going to get," should have been comforting. Instead, it made my stomach clench. Nothing was certain yet. I'd learned not to count on anything until it was absolutely, undeniably mine. "Besides," Marina continued, her tone returning to its careful lightness, "someone in this family should get to live the dream, right? And you've certainly earned it. All those nights I heard you studying while I was out having fun, all those college prep courses while I was at cast parties for plays nobody cared about." She stood up, smoothing her uniform shirt. "I should get going. Gotta open the restaurant." At my bedroom door, she paused. "Whatever happens today, just remember you've worked harder than anyone I know. You deserve whatever comes." Deserve. The word echoed in my head as I walked to school, backpack heavy with textbooks I wouldn't be able to concentrate on today. Did I deserve the scholarship more than Marina? More than the hundreds of other students who had applied? Or was I just lucky that my particular combination of obsessive studying and natural test-taking ability happened to align with what Princeton wanted? Lincoln High buzzed with the usual pre-first period energy, locker doors slamming, friends calling out to each other across crowded hallways, the smell of cafeteria coffee mixing with teenage body spray. I navigated through it all on autopilot, my mind cycling through worst-case scenarios. What if the scholarship committee had discovered some error in my application? What if they had decided I wasn't the right fit after all? "Sophia!" Mr. Caldwell's voice cut through my spiraling thoughts. The guidance counselor stood outside his office, gesturing for me to come over. My heart immediately began racing. Was this it? Had they already called? "How are you holding up?" he asked as I approached, his kind eyes creased with concern behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Nervous," I admitted. "That's normal. Big decisions tend to make us nervous." He glanced around the busy hallway, then lowered his voice. can we talk in my office for a few minutes? There are some things about your application process I'd like to discuss. My mouth went dry. Is something wrong? Not wrong exactly, just unusual. Mr. Caldwell's office was small and cramped, every surface covered with college brochures, scholarship applications, and motivational posters featuring soaring eagles and inspirational quotes about reaching for dreams. He gestured for me to sit in the chair across from his desk while he pulled out a thick manila folder, my file. Sophia, in 20 years of doing this job, I've never seen anything quite like your application history. He opened the folder, revealing pages of forms, emails, and sticky notes. Your SAT scores were flagged for investigation 3 separate times. Each time, the testing board found no evidence of cheating, but the delays pushed back your application deadlines. He flipped through pages pointing to highlighted sections, recommendation letters that somehow never reached their destinations, requiring last-minute rewrites from teachers, college visit appointments that got canceled with no explanation. I stared at the documentation of my academic struggles, seeing them laid out in black and white for the first time. But I thought that was just bad luck? Computer errors? System glitches? Maybe. Mr. Caldwell's expression was carefully neutral. But the pattern is unusual. In most cases, when students experience this many administrative problems, it's because of something happening on their end. Family issues, personal problems, sometimes even deliberate self-sabotage. I didn't sabotage myself, I said quickly. I know you didn't. His voice was gentle but firm. That's what makes this so concerning. Sophia, I've watched you work harder than any student I've ever counseled. Your dedication is remarkable, which is why these obstacles in your path feel so targeted. Targeted. The word sent a chill down my spine. You think someone was deliberately trying to stop me from getting into college?
I think someone made your path much more difficult than it should have been. He closed the folder and leaned back in his chair. The good news is that despite all these setbacks, your application to Princeton was flawless. Your essays were extraordinary, your grades are impeccable, and your teacher's recommendations painted you as exactly the kind of student they want. Relief and confusion warred in my chest. So the scholarship? We'll know in a few hours, he smiled, and for the first time all morning, I felt a flicker of genuine hope. But Sophia, regardless of what happens today, I want you to remember something. You didn't just overcome normal academic challenges to get where you are. You overcame deliberate interference. That takes a strength most people your age don't possess. The bell rang, signaling the start of first period. I gathered my backpack, my mind reeling with Mr. Caldwell's words. Targeted, deliberate interference. But who would want to sabotage my future? And why? As I walked to AP Literature, one face kept floating to the surface of my thoughts. Marina, with her perfect smile and careful words, telling me I deserved whatever came. But there had been something else in her expression this morning, something I'd missed in my anxiety over the scholarship announcement. A glimmer of satisfaction, like someone watching a plan unfold exactly as intended. The thought made me stumble slightly as I entered the classroom. My own sister. It seemed impossible. Marina might be jealous, frustrated about her own missed opportunities, but deliberately sabotaging me? She was the one who helped me practice for interviews, who listened to me read scholarship essays aloud, who brought me coffee during late-night study sessions. Wasn't she? The call came at 11:47 a.m., 13 minutes before Mr. Caldwell's noon predicted deadline. I was sitting in AP Chemistry, pretending to pay attention to Mrs. Patterson's lecture about molecular bonds, while my phone vibrated insistently against my leg under the desk. Princeton University, my heart stopped. Ms. Ramirez, Mrs. Patterson's voice cut through my paralysis. You seem distracted. perhaps you'd like to share what's more important than understanding covalent structures? 28 pairs of eyes turned toward me. I could feel my face burning as I fumbled with my phone, hitting the ignore button just as it stopped ringing. Sorry, Mrs. Patterson, I was just... We'll discuss it after class. Her tone brooked no argument. The remaining 18 minutes of chemistry felt like 18 hours. My leg bounced under the desk as I watched the clock, trying to calculate how quickly I could get to Mr. Caldwell's office to return the call. What if they tried someone else first? What if this was my one chance and I'd blown it by being in class? When the bell finally rang, I was the first person out of my seat. "Sophia!" Mrs. Patterson's voice stopped me at the door. "Everything all right? You seemed anxious all week." "I'm fine," I lied, backing toward the hallway. "Just the scholarship thing. I'll be more focused tomorrow, I promise." I ran through the corridors, dodging slower-moving students and earning disapproving looks from hall monitors. Mr. Caldwell's door was open, and he looked expectantly as I skidded to a stop in his doorway. "Princeton called," I gasped, waving my phone. "Well?" he asked, his eyes lit up. "What did they say?" "I haven't called back yet. I was in chemistry and..." "Sophia," he stood up from his desk, gesturing toward his chair. "Call them back now. Use my office." My hands shook as I dialed the number, praying they would answer, that I hadn't missed my chance. The phone rang, once, twice. Princeton University, Office of Undergraduate Admissions. "This is Sofia Ramirez. I missed a call about the Scholarship for Excellence in Engineering." "Ms. Ramirez, I'm so glad you called back. This is Jennifer Walsh from the Scholarship Committee. I have wonderful news." The world went very still. Mr. Caldwell leaned forward in his guest chair, his eyes fixed on my face. "You have been selected as this year's recipient of the full Scholarship for Excellence in Engineering. Congratulations, Sophia! The committee was unanimously impressed by your application, your academic achievements, and particularly by your resilience in overcoming the administrative challenges you faced during the application process." What? The words didn't seem real.
"You won, Sophia!" Jennifer's voice was warm with genuine excitement. "Full tuition, room and board, plus a stipend for books and supplies, 4 years, renewable as long as you maintain the academic standards you've already demonstrated." I looked at Mr. Caldwell, who was grinning so widely I thought his face might crack. "I won," I whispered to him. He gave me a thumbs up, tears actually forming in his eyes. "There are some forms to complete," Jennifer continued, "and we'll need to schedule a time for you to visit campus before the fall semester. But, Sophia, I want you to know, in 30 years of reviewing scholarship applications, yours stood out not just for your academic excellence, but for your determination. Most students would have given up after facing the obstacles you encountered. The fact that you persevered tells us everything we need to know about your character." After I hung up, Mr. Caldwell and I sat in his small office in stunned silence for a moment. Then he started laughing, a deep, joyful sound that filled the cramped space. "4 years at Princeton," he said, shaking his head in amazement. "Sophia, do you understand what this means? You're going to be an engineer. You're going to change the world." The reality was starting to sink in. Princeton, full scholarship, everything I'd dreamed about since middle school was actually happening. "I have to tell my family," I said suddenly, jumping up from the chair. "Of course, go. Call your mother. Celebrate." Mr. Caldwell stood too, reaching out to shake my hand. "But, Sophia, before you go, remember what I said about the irregularities in your application process. Someone made this journey much harder for you than it should have been. I don't know who or why, but I want you to be aware. Success sometimes brings out unexpected reactions in people, even people close to us." His words sent a small chill through my celebration, but I pushed it aside. Today was about triumph, not suspicion. I called Mom from the hallway outside Mr. Caldwell's office, practically bouncing on my toes as the phone rang. "Sophia, why are you calling during school? Is everything..."
I got it, Mom. I got the scholarship. Full ride to Princeton. The silence on the other end stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Then I heard her crying, deep, quiet sobs that made my own eyes fill with tears.
Just answer me, please. He pushed his glasses up his nose, a nervous habit he'd had since elementary school. She's been on her laptop a lot more than usual, like way more, and she's been asking me questions about computer stuff. My heart started beating faster. What kind of questions? Email forwarding, how to set up automatic replies, how to create fake email addresses that look official? Diego's voice grew quieter. I thought she was maybe planning a prank or something for her friends. The room felt like it was shrinking around me. What did you tell her? I showed her some stuff, basic things. He looked down at his hands. Sophia, did I do something wrong? You look really upset. I sat down on his unmade bed, trying to process what he'd just told me. Marina hadn't just been intercepting my mail. She'd been creating fake emails, setting up forwarding systems. The scope of her sabotage was bigger than I imagined. There's more, Diego said hesitantly. Last week I heard her on the phone late at night. She was talking to someone about college applications, about how to make documents disappear from systems. I thought maybe she was finally applying to schools herself, but what? She was laughing, like excited laughing, like when she used to successfully pull pranks on us when we were little. And she mentioned your name several times. The final piece clicked into place. Marina hadn't just been passively sabotaging me. She'd been actively, methodically destroying my opportunities while pretending to support me. Every hug after a missed deadline, every "you'll get them next time" after a mysteriously lost recommendation letter, every word of encouragement had been lies. Diego, I said carefully, I need you to help me with something, but it has to stay between us for now, okay? He nodded solemnly. Can you recover deleted files from the family computer? Like if someone deleted emails or documents, could you find them? Depends on how long ago they were deleted and whether the hard drive space got written over. His voice took on the confident tone he used when discussing technology. Why? What are we looking for? I took a deep breath. Evidence that Marina has been sabotaging my college applications. Diego stared at me for a long moment, his young face cycling through confusion, disbelief, and finally a grim understanding that made him look older than his 13 years. She wouldn't, he whispered. She's your sister. She applied for the same scholarship 2 years ago. She didn't get. I met his eyes. I just did. Without another word, Diego turned back to his computer and began typing rapidly. Windows opened and closed on his screen as he navigated through system files and recovery programs with the easy confidence of someone who'd been building computers since he was 10. Give me a few minutes, he murmured, completely absorbed in his task. I watched him work, marveling at how my quiet little brother could command technology like this. While I'd been focused on grades and applications and college prep, Diego had been developing skills I barely understood, skills that might finally give me answers. Sophia, he whispered, you need to see this. I moved behind his chair to look at the screen. He'd opened a folder titled Recovered Files, Marina, that contained dozens of documents and screenshots. Email drafts, Diego explained, his voice barely above a whisper, from fake addresses that look like they're from colleges and testing organizations. Look at this one. He clicked on a file and an email draft appeared on screen. Dear Sofia Ramirez, we regret to inform you that your SAT scores have been flagged for review due to suspicious testing patterns. Your scores will be withheld pending investigation, which may take 6 to 8 weeks to complete. Sincerely, Educational Testing Service. She never sent this one, Diego said. But look at the date. It's from last spring, right around when your actual scores got delayed. My legs felt weak. Show me more. Diego clicked through file after file, fake emails from college admissions offices claiming my applications were incomplete, forged withdrawal letters that looked like they came from me, screenshots of my real college application passwords, somehow obtained and saved. How did she get my passwords? I asked, though I was afraid I already knew the answer. Keylogger, Diego said grimly. Probably installed it when she was borrowing your laptop to check her email. It would record every keystroke you made. The violation felt complete. Marina hadn't just been sabotaging my applications. She'd been watching my every move online, stealing my private information, reading my personal emails. There's more, Diego said quietly. He opened another folder labeled College Visits. Inside were confirmation emails for campus visits I'd scheduled, followed by cancellation emails that appeared to come from me. I never canceled these, I whispered, staring at appointments to tour engineering programs at MIT, Stanford, Carnegie Mellon, visits that would have helped me make informed decisions about my future, that Marina had stolen from me with a few clicks. Sofia? Diego turned in his chair to face me. What are we going to do? I stared at the evidence of my sister's betrayal, feeling a strange calm settle over me. The mystery that had plagued me for years finally had an explanation. The self-doubt, the wondering if I was somehow cursed or incompetent, all of it could be laid at Marina's feet. Sofia, I said carefully, we're going to save all of this. Copy it to a USB drive, print it out, make sure it can't disappear. And then we're going to make sure Marina can never do this to anyone else again. Diego nodded gravely and set to work copying files. As I watched the evidence of Marina's systematic campaign against me transfer to external storage, I thought about all the nights I'd stayed up until 3 a.m. studying, convinced that I had to work twice as hard as everyone else just to keep up. All the times I'd blamed myself for missed opportunities and lost chances. I'd been fighting a war I didn't even know I was in, but now I knew the truth. And tomorrow, Marina was going to learn that despite everything she'd done, I'd won anyway. Marina didn't come down for dinner that night. Mom worked late, so it was just Diego and me sitting at our kitchen table, picking at leftover pizza while the weight of our discovery hung between us like a toxic cloud. She has to know that you won, Diego said quietly, tearing his slice into small pieces instead of eating it. The whole school probably knows by now. I'd been thinking the same thing. News traveled fast at Lincoln High, especially news about full scholarships to Ivy League schools. By now, teachers would be congratulating me in hallways, classmates would be posting about it on social media, and Marina's former friends who still attended school would definitely have heard. She's been in her room since I got home, I said. Hasn't even come out to use the bathroom. Maybe she's packing, Diego suggested hopefully. Maybe she'll just leave, and we won't have to deal with confronting her. But I knew my sister better than that. Marina had never backed down from anything in her life. If she was hiding in her room, it wasn't because she was planning to run away. It was because she was planning something else. The sound of footsteps on the stairs made both of us freeze. Marina appeared in the kitchen doorway, and I almost didn't recognize her. Her usually perfect hair hung limp and unwashed around her face. Her eyes were red-rimmed and puffy, but there was something fierce burning in them that made my stomach clench. "So," she said, her voice hoarse. "Princeton." I sat up straighter in my chair. "Marina." "No." She held up a hand, and I noticed it was shaking slightly. "Don't. Don't give me some speech about how sorry you are or how you didn't mean for this to happen. We both know you did everything you could to make sure you got what was supposed to be mine." The accusation hit me like a physical blow. What was supposed to be yours? That scholarship, that future. Marina moved further into the kitchen, her movements sharp and agitated. I was supposed to be the one who got out of here, who made something of myself. I was supposed to be the success story. Diego and I exchanged glances. I could see the USB drive containing all the evidence of Marina's sabotage sitting on the counter behind her, and I prayed she wouldn't notice it. "Marina, you could still apply to other schools." "With what grades? With what money?" Her voice was rising now, taking on a hysterical edge. "You think I don't know what people say about me? Poor Marina, used to be so promising. What a waste of potential. The sister who couldn't hack it." "That's not true," I said, though we both knew it kind of was.
Isn't it? She laughed, a bitter sound that made me flinch. You want to know what's really funny, Sophia? I tried so hard to stop you from getting that scholarship. So many little obstacles, so many tiny roadblocks, and you just kept pushing through all of them like they were nothing. My blood went cold. She was confessing. Right here in front of Diego, she was actually admitting what she'd done. I don't know what you're talking about, I said carefully. Oh, come on. Marina's eyes glittered with malice. The missing email letters, the canceled college visits, the mysteriously delayed test scores? You really thought all of that was just bad luck? Diego made a small sound beside me, but Marina didn't seem to notice. I worked so hard, she continued, her voice taking on a sing-song quality that was somehow more terrifying than her anger. Learning about email forwarding, creating fake addresses that looked official, timing everything perfectly so you'd miss deadlines. Do you know how much effort it takes to systematically destroy someone's future? Marina, stop. My voice came out as a whisper. And the best part, she said, moving closer to our table, was watching you blame yourself, watching you stay up all night studying because you thought you weren't good enough, weren't smart enough, weren't working hard enough, when really you were just fighting against me. The cruelty in her voice was breathtaking. This wasn't the sister who had braided my hair when I was little, who had taught me how to put on makeup, who had defended me from bullies in middle school. This was someone I didn't recognize. You're sick, Diego said suddenly, his young voice cutting through the tension like a knife. What you did to Sofia is sick. Marina turned toward him with a smile that made my stomach crawl. Oh, little Diego, always the quiet one. Did you know your sister used to cry herself to sleep sometimes, wondering why everything kept going wrong for her? I could hear her through the walls. Stop, I said again, standing up from my chair. My hands were clenched into fists at my sides. I should have tried harder, she continued, as if she hadn't heard me. Should have been more creative. Maybe if I had really committed to destroying your applications completely, instead of just making them difficult. You did try harder. Diego's voice was steady and cold. We found everything, Marina. Every fake email, every canceled appointment, every piece of sabotage. We have proof. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Marina stared at the USB drive like it was a snake about to strike, her face cycling through emotions too quickly for me to follow. Then she laughed again, that same bitter sound, but somehow emptier now. You know what the really funny thing is? She said, sinking into the chair across from where I had been sitting. Even with all of that evidence, even with everything I did to try to stop you, you still won. You still got the scholarship I wanted more than anything in the world. Because I earned it, I said, finding my voice again. Because I worked for it. Because you're better than me. The words came out flat and emotionless. Because you were always going to be better than me, no matter what I did to try to level the playing field. The admission hung in the air between us. Marina slumped in her chair, suddenly looking much older than 19, and I felt an unexpected wave of pity for her. She destroyed our relationship, violated my privacy, and tried to ruin my future, all because she couldn't bear the thought of her little sister succeeding where she had failed. Marina, I said softly, it didn't have to be this way. She looked up at me with eyes that were flat and dead. Yes, it did. From the moment you started getting better grades than me, from the moment teachers started using you as an example of what I should be doing, it was always going to end this way. The front door opened, and Mom's voice called out from the hallway, I'm home. How are my college girls doing? Marina and I stared at each other across the kitchen table. Diego clutched the USB drive like a lifeline. And somewhere in the distance, I could hear my mother's footsteps approaching, about to walk into the middle of our family's complete destruction. Mom, I called out before she could enter the kitchen. Can you come here? We need to talk to you about something important. Marina snapped toward me, her eyes wide with something between panic and rage. Sophia, don't you dare. Don't I dare what? I kept my voice level, though my heart was pounding. Tell Mom the truth about what you've been doing? Mom appeared in the doorway, still wearing her nurse's scrubs, her tired face immediately creasing with concern as she took in the tension radiating from the three of us. What's going on? She asked, setting down her purse and looking between Marina and me. Sophia, you said you won the scholarship. Shouldn't we be celebrating? We should be, I said quietly. But first, there are some things you need to know about why winning it was so much harder than it should have been. Marina stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I don't have to listen to this. I'm going out. Sit down, Marina. Mom's voice carried the authority that had gotten two teenagers through their childhood without a father. Nobody's going anywhere until someone explains why my kitchen feels like a war zone. For a moment, I thought Marina might actually bolt for the door, but something in Mom's tone made her sink back into her chair, her hands fidgeting with the edge of her shirt. Diego, I said softly, show Mom what we found. My little brother stepped forward with the USB drive, his face pale but determined. Mrs. Ramirez, Mom, I found some files on the family computer, deleted files that Marina tried to hide. What kind of files? Mom's voice was carefully neutral, but I could see the worry building in her eyes. Diego plugged the USB drive into his laptop and angled the screen so Mom could see. Fake emails, forged documents, evidence that Marina has been sabotaging Sofia's college applications. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom stared at the screen, her face going through the same cycle of disbelief, horror, and devastation that I'd experienced in Diego's room. These are emails about Sofia's SAT scores, she said slowly, reading from the screen. But they're in a folder labeled with Marina's name. Because Marina wrote them, Diego explained quietly. She created fake email addresses that looked like they came from testing companies and colleges. She used them to confuse Sofia, to make her miss deadlines, to convince her that her applications were failing for legitimate reasons. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Marina, tell me this isn't true. Marina sat in her chair like a statue, staring at the table in front of her. She didn't deny it. She didn't explain. She just sat there, radiating a kind of toxic silence that filled the entire room. And here, Diego continued, clicking to another screen, are Sofia's real passwords. Marina was using a keylogger to steal them. Then she'd go into Sofia's actual college accounts and change things. What kind of things? Mom's voice was barely a whisper. Canceling campus visits, withdrawing applications right before deadlines, changing contact information so acceptance letters would get sent to the wrong addresses. Diego's young voice was matter-of-fact, but I could see his hands shaking slightly as he navigated through the evidence. Mom sank into the remaining kitchen chair, her face ashen. How long has this been going on? Based on the file dates, Diego said, about 2 years, starting right around the time Sofia began her junior year. 2 years. Marina had been systematically destroying my future for 2 years, smiling to my face while working behind the scenes to ensure I would fail. Marina, Mom's voice was deadly quiet. Look at me. Slowly, reluctantly, Marina raised her head. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears, but there was still that defiant edge that suggested she wasn't sorry, just sorry she'd been caught. Is this true? Mom asked. For a long moment, Marina said nothing. Then, in a voice so quiet I had to strain to hear it, she said, yes. The single word hit Mom like a physical blow. I watched my mother, who had worked double shifts for years to support our dreams, who had sacrificed everything to give us opportunities she never had, crumble as she realized one daughter had been destroying the other. Why? Mom whispered. Because it should have been me. Marina's voice was getting stronger now, more defiant. I was supposed to be the one who got out of here. I was supposed to be the success story. But then Sofia started getting perfect grades and winning academic awards, and everyone started talking about how bright she was, how much potential she had.
She was struggling, Mama's voice cracked. She was struggling because you were making her struggle. All those nights she stayed up until 3 a.m. studying, all those times she cried because she thought she wasn't good enough, that was because of you. The truth of it hung in the air between us. All my self-doubt, all my fears that I wasn't smart enough or dedicated enough, all the times I'd pushed myself to exhaustion trying to overcome obstacles that seemed to multiply no matter how hard I worked, it had all been Marina's doing. I want you out of this house. Mom's voice was flat and final. Tonight. Marina's defiance cracked. Mom, you can't. I can and I will. Mom stood up, her small frame somehow commanding the entire room. What you did to your sister is unforgivable.
You tried to steal her future because you were jealous of her success. That's not just sibling rivalry, Marina. That's cruelty. Where am I supposed to go? Marina's voice was small now, the bravado completely gone. That's not my problem anymore. Mom's words were like ice. You're 19 years old, you made adult choices, now you get to live with adult consequences. Marina looked around the kitchen, at Mom's implacable face, at Diego clutching his laptop like a shield, at me, standing with my arms crossed, feeling a strange mixture of vindication and sadness. Sofia, you have to understand. No, I don't have to understand anything. You tried to destroy my future because you couldn't handle me succeeding where you failed. There's nothing to understand about that. Marina stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something shift in her expression. The last of her defiance died, replaced with something that might have been regret if I'd been feeling generous enough to call it that. "I'll pack my things," she said quietly. As she left the kitchen, Mom sank back into her chair and buried her face in her hands. Diego closed his laptop and sat down beside her, awkwardly patting her shoulder. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry this happened to our family." She looked up at me with tears streaming down her face. "Don't you apologize, mija. Don't you dare apologize for any of this. You earned that scholarship despite everything Marina did to stop you. That makes it even more impressive." But as I heard Marina moving around upstairs, packing the life she'd destroyed with her own choices, I couldn't help but feel like we'd all lost something that could never be recovered. The family I thought I belonged to had been built on a lie. And even though I'd won the scholarship, even though my future was secure, the victory felt hollow when it came at the cost of losing my sister forever. Marina left that night without saying goodbye, taking only 2 suitcases and the bitter silence that had settled over our house like fog. I watched from my bedroom window as she loaded her car under the streetlight, her movements sharp and angry. She looked up at my window once, and for a moment, our eyes met through the glass. Then she got in her car and drove away. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. 3 days later, Mr. Caldwell called me into his office with an expression I'd never seen before. Part concern, part confusion, part something that looked like barely controlled anger. "Sofia, I've received some troubling information about your scholarship," he said without preamble. My stomach dropped. "What kind of information?" "Someone contacted Princeton's admissions office yesterday. They claimed to have evidence that you cheated on your SATs and forged recommendation letters." His voice was carefully controlled. "They said you didn't deserve the scholarship and that the committee needed to know the truth about your character." The room started spinning. Who would say that? But even as I asked the question, I knew. Marina hadn't given up. Being kicked out of the house hadn't stopped her, it had just made her more desperate. The caller wouldn't give their name, but they provided specific details about your application timeline that suggested intimate knowledge of your academic history. "Mr. Caldwell, I never cheated. You know I know, he said firmly, and thankfully so does Princeton. When they called me to verify the allegations, I was able to explain the real situation. I sent them copies of all the evidence Diego found along with a detailed report about the sabotage you experienced. Relief flooded through me so suddenly I felt dizzy. So the scholarship is safe? The scholarship is safe, but Sofia, this isn't over. Whoever made that call sounded determined to keep trying. He leaned forward across his desk. Is there anything you need to tell me? Anyone who might have reason to want to destroy your opportunities? I took a deep breath. It was time to tell the whole truth.
It's my sister Marina. She's the one who's been sabotaging me. She applied for the same scholarship 2 years ago and didn't get it. When she found out I won, I trailed off, the words still feeling surreal. Mr. Caldwell's expression darkened. Your own sister? We confronted her 3 nights ago. My mom kicked her out of the house. I guess Marina decided if she couldn't stop me from getting the scholarship before, she'd try to take it away from me after. This is harassment, Mr. Caldwell said flatly. What she's doing could be considered criminal interference with your education. The idea of Marina facing legal consequences made my chest tight.
Despite everything she'd done, despite the years of sabotage and the latest attempt to destroy my future, she was still my sister. The thought of her in a real trouble felt wrong, even after all the pain she'd caused. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now we document everything. Every contact, every attempt to undermine your achievements. And Sofia," his voice softened slightly, "you need to be prepared. People who are willing to go this far don't usually stop on their own. Your sister may not be done trying to hurt you." As I walked home that afternoon, Mr. Caldwell's warning echoed in my head. Marina was still out there somewhere, still angry, still determined to take away what I'd earned. The scholarship was safe for now, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the real fight was just beginning. That night, I found Diego in his room working on a new project that looks like some kind of security system. "It's for your laptop in case she tries to hack your accounts again." My 13-year-old brother was building cybersecurity defenses to protect me from our own sister. The thought was both heartwarming and heartbreaking. "Diego," I said softly, "what kind of family have we become?" He looked up at me with those serious eyes that had seen too much lately. "The kind where the good people protect each other from the bad ones," he said simply. And somehow that felt like enough. The scholarship ceremony was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it felt like preparing for battle. The event was held in Lincoln High's auditorium, with the entire senior class in attendance, along with families, teachers, and local community leaders. I sat in the front row with the other scholarship recipients, my hands folded in my lap to hide their trembling, trying to focus on the speeches while scanning the crowd for any sign of Marina. She wouldn't come here, I told myself. Not after everything that had happened. Not after Mom had banned her from contacting any of us. I was wrong again. I spotted her during the introductory remarks, sitting in the back row near the exit. She'd cut her hair short and dyed it darker, but I recognized the way she held her shoulders, the defiant tilt of her chin. She was dressed nicely, probably borrowed clothes from whatever friend was letting her crash on the couch, and she was staring directly at me. My chest tightened. Why was she here? What was she planning? "And now," Principal Martinez announced from the podium, "I'd like to call Sofia Ramirez to the stage to receive the Princeton University Scholarship for Excellence in Engineering." The applause felt distant and muffled as I stood up on unsteady legs. I forced myself to smile as I walked across the stage, accepting the ceremonial certificate and shaking hands with the Princeton representative who had driven down for the ceremony. "Ms. Ramirez," the Princeton representative said into the microphone, "would you like to say a few words?" I hadn't planned to speak, but suddenly, with Marina watching from the back of the auditorium, I knew exactly what I needed to say. "Thank you," I began, my voice stronger than I felt. "This scholarship represents 4 years of hard work, but it also represents something else, the power of truth." I found Marina's face in the crowd. She was leaning forward now, her expression intense and unreadable. "Some people believe that success comes from tearing others down, from sabotaging the achievements of people they see as competition. But real success comes from persistence, from refusing to give up even when obstacles appear in your path." A murmur went through the audience. They probably thought I was speaking in generalities, giving typical graduation advice. But Marina knew better. Marina knew that I was talking directly to her.
"I've learned that sometimes the biggest challenges come not from external forces, but from people close to you who can't celebrate your success because they're too focused on their own failures." Marina's face had gone pale. She stood up abruptly, and for a moment I thought she might leave. Instead, she moved closer to the stage, her eyes locked on mine. "But here's what I want everyone to remember," I continued, my voice rising slightly. "Truth always wins in the end. Merit always rises to the surface. And no amount of sabotage can stop someone who's truly determined to succeed." The applause was louder this time, but I barely heard it. Marina had stopped moving and was now standing in the middle aisle, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. "So to anyone out there who thinks they can steal someone else's future," I said, looking directly at her, "know this. You're only revealing your own character. And someday, everyone will see you for who you really are." The auditorium erupted in applause, but Marina was already turning toward the exit. As she reached the door, she looked back at me one last time. Even from a distance, I could see tears on her cheeks. Then, she was gone. After the ceremony, people crowded around me with congratulations and questions about my speech. Mom hugged me tight, whispering how proud she was. Diego gave me a rare smile and a thumbs up from where he stood with his friends. But as I accepted handshakes and answered questions about my plans for Princeton, part of my mind stayed focused on the auditorium doors where Marina had disappeared. I'd wanted to expose her publicly, to make sure everyone knew the truth about what she'd done. Now that I had, I wasn't sure if I felt better or worse. Mr. Caldwell appeared at my elbow. "Powerful speech," he said quietly. "I think you got your message across. Is it over now? Will she finally leave me alone?" He was quiet for a moment, watching the doors where Marina had exited. "I hope so, Sofia. But people who are that desperate don't usually give up easily. Just stay vigilant." As my family and I walked to the parking lot, I couldn't shake the feeling that Mr. Caldwell was right. The public confrontation might have felt like victory, but it might also have made Marina even more determined to hurt me. The war for my future wasn't over yet. 2 weeks later, I was sitting in my AP government class when the fire alarm went off. As we filed out of the building in orderly lines, I noticed Mr. Caldwell scanning the crowd with an expression of barely controlled panic. "Sofia," he jogged over to where I stood with my classmates. "We need to talk. Now." My stomach dropped. "What's wrong?" "Someone broke into the main office last night. They accessed the computer system and deleted files from multiple student records, including yours." The world tilted. "What kind of files?" "Transcripts, recommendation letters, standardized test scores, everything Princeton would need to verify your scholarship eligibility." He ran a hand through his hair. "The backup server was also compromised. It looks like someone with serious technical knowledge planned this very carefully." Marina. It had to be Marina. But how could she have gotten into the school? How could she have known enough about computer systems to pull off something this sophisticated? "The good news is," Mr. Caldwell continued, "Princeton already has copies of everything they need. Your scholarship is still secure. But Sofia, this is escalating beyond anything I've seen before. We're talking about breaking and entering, destruction of property, potentially criminal sabotage. Has anyone called the police?" "Principal Martinez is meeting with them now. But here's the thing. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were looking for and exactly how to access it. This wasn't random vandalism. This was targeted, and it was personal." As if summoned by our conversation, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You think you've won, but I'm not done. You took everything from me. Now I'm going to take everything from you. Watch your back, little sister." I showed the text to Mr. Caldwell, whose face darkened as he read it. "That's it," he said firmly. "We're involving law enforcement immediately. This isn't sibling rivalry anymore, Sofia. This is stalking and harassment." But as he spoke, I realized something that made my blood run cold. The technical sophistication of the school break-in, the precise knowledge of which files to target, the ability to compromise backup systems. Marina couldn't have done this alone. She'd found help. Someone with real hacking skills was now working with her.
"Mr. Caldwell," I said slowly, "what if she's not working alone anymore?" His expression grew even more serious. "What do you mean?" "The computer skills required for this? Marina doesn't have them. but she knows people who might. And if she's desperate enough to recruit help, I trailed off, the implications hitting me. "We need to get you somewhere safe," Mr. Caldwell said immediately, "and we need to contact your family." As he led me toward the school office, I caught sight of Diego standing with his computer science class near the parking lot. Even from a distance, I could see the worry on his young face as he watched emergency vehicles surrounding our school. My little brother had protected me once by uncovering Marina's digital sabotage. Now I wondered if his own technical skills might make him a target too. The text message burned in my mind. "Watch your back, little sister." Marina had already tried to destroy my past. Now she was coming for my future, and this time she had help. The scholarship ceremony at Princeton was still 3 days away. 3 days to keep myself safe, to protect my family, and to make sure that no matter what Marina tried next, she couldn't take away what I'd earned. 3 days to end this war once and for all. As police officers interviewed students and teachers about the break-in, I realized that my fight for this scholarship had become something much bigger than academic achievement. It had become a battle for my right to succeed despite the people who wanted to see me fail. And I wasn't going to lose. 6 months later, I'm writing this from my dorm room at Princeton, looking out at the campus where I'll spend the next 4 years becoming an engineer. Marina was arrested 3 days after the school break-in. Her accomplice turned out to be an ex-boyfriend with a computer science degree and a grudge against the world. She's serving community service and mandatory counseling. Mom visits her sometimes. I don't. Diego just sent me a photo of his latest robotics project with the caption, "Building something awesome just like my sister." He's thriving without Marina's toxic presence in our house. Some people think I should forgive her, move on, rebuild our relationship. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. Marina chose jealousy over love, distraction over support. Those choices have consequences. I earned this scholarship despite her sabotage. Now I'm going to earn everything else that comes next. My degree, my career, my future. Because that's who I am. Someone who doesn't give up. Someone who wins.
Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.